Hello, friends. Welcome back to Love Wrestling. Spencer Love here, and we talk about supporting great people in professional wrestling, as well as great professional wrestlers, as well as great promoters. We're checking a lot of boxes off today by having Big Ben Ortmanns on the show, man. It's good to talk to you. It's really good to talk to you, especially like we were saying even 30 seconds ago, on camera rather than the multitude of times off camera or tuning into Twitch streams or anything in between, man. How are you doing? How are things out on the East Coast of Canada for you, friend?
Well, I'm doing my best to stay as positive as possible because obviously it's a bit of a strange time right now. There's we're back to nothing going on again. So there's no shows, there's no really anything. There's no like where we're at. Like everybody knows where we're at. So we're kind of just back in the middle of just trying to make the best of a really unfortunate and shitty situation. And that's really all we can do is just is do our best, because getting frustrated is really easy and getting upset is really easy, and I guess straying off of and just stopping your training, stopping your dieting, stopping your all that, like everything, like there's just everything is a very, very easy thing to just kind of stop doing. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's the right thing to do is even just to kind of put a pause button on things, but it's okay.
After 2 years, we don't want to put a pause button on it anymore.
Yeah, but it is okay to continue to try to push forward. And like there's you're just going to become better when the time comes and all that good stuff. But at the same time too, I don't blame anybody for kind of just hanging out right now either. You know what I mean? It's a very uncertain time, and I think we've all kind of just gotten a little bit more frustrated, just the fact that like we all work so hard to come back and kind of get something going, and then it kind of just got taken away from us again. So, all we can really do, like I said, is just to do our best to try to be as upbeat as possible and try to lift each other's spirits up and all that other good jazz, and get a chance to speak to good people like Spencer,
Well, yeah, man. And like you've taken the opportunity, like you say, you sort of find the silver lining for things and find the positives. And it's what drew me to you initially. And it's how we sort of got to know each other as far as the Twitch streams and that sort of stuff goes. But, I only started tuning in, I would assume, far after the first time you started doing it. So what inspired you to hop on there? Was it just the lack of things to do, whether wrestling promotionally or otherwise, or was it something different for you?
A little bit of both. I just remember that me and two of my friends, Brady and Matthew Grant, excuse me, we were just kind of sitting around, like we are just having one of those like end of the year discussions where we're just like, what are we doing with ourselves? Like, what can we do moving forward? Like, what can we do to kind of get ourselves motivated? Because, it was definitely during it was during the pandemic and all that stuff. So we all just decided that we were going to like take our little love of action figure collecting, and they're big card collectors as well. Like those two collect a lot more than me, but I kind of just got in on it. And we wanted to do like a podcast every Saturday where we would get together and like just talk about our favorite wrestling figures, and just almost like kind of like what the Major Wrestling Figure podcast has become. But like we just wanted to do it with just a couple buds, just like where we would just, I don't know, just talk about whatever. And then we did that a couple of times, and then they wanted to like started opening up cards, and then it just kind of became a thing. And then I really started to enjoy it. And then I just didn't really enjoy the buying action figures every week part of it, if that makes any sense. So
yeah,
they weren't really enjoying the show, doing it as much. I wasn't really enjoying the investment. So that part of it kind of disintegrated, and they kind of done their own thing on like Facebook, and like they do these incredible, like what they were doing at least anyway. But they were doing like these awesome like live auctions and live, like, I don't know, can't really explain it unless you're a wrestling action figure person, but like those two really have done a great job kind of going into that market. Me, I was just I wanted to do something different. Like I didn't want to do that all the time. I just wanted to enjoy that as a hobby as opposed to kind of keep it as a job. And I was just like, well, what do I love doing? So I was just trying to figure it out. And then I started playing games, and then, nobody was really watching. And I was just like, okay, well, how can I get people to like kind of interact with me? And like, how do I build an audience with this? And then I think I saw Speedball watching wrestling the one day, and he just encouraged me to do it. And then I was just watching matches that I thought people wanted to watch, which was just like old WWE or like North American stuff. And then it was just stuff that I wasn't even really enjoying. So I didn't really understand why I was making other people watch it. So next thing I knew, I just kind of was like, well, fuck it. I don't know what you guys want to watch. So here's a Discord link. Speedball told me what a Discord was. I got one. So I'd kind of forgotten about it. So I was like, here's a link to my Discord. Go put links for YouTube matches that you like, and then we'll watch those.
Yeah.
So next thing I know, we kind of did that the one night, and then it was a lot of Japanese wrestling. And I didn't really understand Japanese wrestling growing up just because I don't understand the language. So it was very difficult for me to understand what the hell was happening. So with everybody that was in chat, they were kind of explaining not only what was happening, but like who they were, what their backstories were, like just kind of what was happening, like kind of set the plate for me, and I was really enjoying it with them kind of telling me all this stuff. And then it kind of became like this really cool thing where like I was going to watch, everybody wanted to watch, but they kind of also enjoyed the process of teaching me about it, because I was like just putting my guard down. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know shit.
I don't know shit about Japanese. So like people, so some guys, and like to this day, and like I still talk to them, like, and they still hop on with every stream that I do, but they took it as like their own personal mission for me to like understand like Japanese wrestling. Like, and Speedball was one of them, like, because they're just like, man, this is up your alley. Like, this is what you would really, really not only enjoy, but I think that once you started to really get into it, this is kind of the style that you would start to implement as your own. And holy shit, was that correct? I just fallen in love with it. Like, it's not that I don't like North American wrestling anymore, but like, I mean, I've really, like, if I'm going to look up something to watch online, if I'm just like bored and I want to watch wrestling, I'm going to like Wrestle Universe, or I'm going to YouTube to type in, Minoru Suzuki versus, and I'll find a random match, or Kenta versus, and I'll find a random match. And that's kind of what I do now.
And I was going to ask if that started to affect your in-ring sort of stuff, because albeit I couldn't find a ton of it, but what I started to watch from prior to the pandemic and all that sort of stuff you could find, you've always been sort of a hard-hitting individual. But, again, the comparison between North American and Japanese wrestling is apples and oranges as far as a lot of that sort of stuff goes, right?
I would say that I took the psychology of it.
Okay.
Because there was a long time where I didn't really understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. I was just like, oh, this is just what pro wrestlers do. They're supposed to do this, go into this next spot, go into this next thing, transition into this. And then I'd get done matches and I'd just be like, I don't know why I did any of this. Like, and I'm like, so the process was becoming very unfulfilling, because I just felt like I just felt like I was going out there to put my body on the line, and I was just doing stuff to just do it because that's the way that people expected it to be done, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
There was nothing I ever felt, because I was like, there would literally be times where I'd be in the process of calling a match. I'd be like, I would never do this in a fight. Why am I doing this in a wrestling match? Like, I don't understand. Like, but this is what wrestling is. I guess I got to do this, this, and this. And then I started getting introduced to Japanese wrestling, and next thing I know, I see guys like Kenta. So they start the match off where like they'll just fucking run across the ring and kick you the fucking face, and I was just like, but that's how I would start a fight. That's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't just be like, let's walk up.
I was just gonna say, you don't need to circle each other and grab each other.
Yeah, I was just like, that's not me. Like, that's just not how I do things. Like, even when I got into a mixed martial arts gym, it's mixed martial arts. Like there was all of them. Like there was kickboxing, boxing, jujitsu, wrestling, there was all of it there. For some reason, I just really, really stuck to kickboxing, and like I just loved that art form. So when it dawned on me that I could bring and transition that skill set over to pro wrestling, I was like,
sort of a breakthrough moment almost. Yeah.
A huge breakthrough moment, because not only did I realize that this is what I could do as far as like my in-ring stuff, I was just like, that psychology is essentially the psychology that I wanted to do in North America. Like, I guess North American wrestling was, I was like, oh, that's what they do in Japan. All of the things just kind of started to click. And I was just like, this is what I need to watch going forward. Like, this is why Speedball was telling me to watch this and to watch this person and now I understand. So it's not that I would say that I go out there and try to copy what Japanese wrestlers do. I would just say that what it's done is it's taken my lifetime worth of knowledge that I've been able to gain about pro wrestling, and now I'm able to take what I know about like kickboxing and mixed martial arts, and now I know a healthy way to combine the two to make it my own.
Love to hear it, man. You've brought Speedball up a couple of times, and I was going to touch on some of the highlights of your current or your post current wave, whatever we're calling this era of the pandemic of wrestling. Talk to me about your match with Speedball at IWS, because you've obviously brought him up as a mentor a couple of times. I loved the video you put out just prior to that match as well, but let's get it straight from the Ortmanns' mouth, to make a bad pun. Doesn't sound quite like horse, but we'll go with it. I need to hear the story from you.
So like, I don't know, like, do you want like the story of like just the day, like the match of like,
the match itself, and then what it sort of meant to you, right? Like, you bring Speedball up quite a few times, and we all know what he means to Canadian wrestling, but just yourself specifically.
So the match itself meant a lot to me, just because it was something that I tried to put together on Twitch, and it just didn't quite work out. Like, I had kind of put a list of, goals that I'd wanted to hit over the course of the next year. So like, when I had my very first match in front of a crowd, like that was going to start my 1 year calendar. And if I hadn't hit like this set of goals that I, made for myself, that I was going to stop, because it's just like, maybe I'm just wasting my time. I don't know how I feel about like continuing that right now, just because I've really been fucked out of a whole lot of months out of this year. But the reality is that the months that I've been able to do this, is I knocked out a really large portion of those goals. And the top 2 goals that I had on there was to wrestle Speedball Mike Bailey and to wrestle at C4. So they both happened, which was obviously incredible. But I was trying to get it to happen the first time, because if we had hit a certain amount of like a bit goal that we had set, and maybe I just made it too like ambitious or whatever, but essentially I just set it to pay for my gas to get there and back. And then me and him had this idea that we were going to film this kind of a series. Like, I was going to bring my producer from Crossbody with, like, we had this entire elaborate thing in mind, where if we hit this goal, like, we were going to do this, like, I was going to drive to Montreal. We were going to, like, I'm not going to tell you exactly what we're going to do, just in case like it ever does happen. But we had this plan where I was going to drive to Montreal. We were going to film this idea that we had, and then we were going to take it back. We were going to like edit it, do the whole thing, and then we were going to release it and air it on Twitch, but only for the people who like donated bits or whatever, right? Like, we were going to set it up as like a private viewing.
Yeah.
And it was never going to get released to anybody else. Like, nobody else was going to see it. That was the whole idea.
Very cool.
Is that it was going to literally only be for the people that only donated bits.
Yeah.
We didn't quite get there. But me and Speedball, like, we're kind of talking about how he was going to do this invitational show for IWS to kind of get things going, that they weren't going to announce it. And he's just like, if we don't hit the goal, he's like, maybe you guys, if you want to come down anyway, you can bring a couple of like your crew down, and then maybe we can have like a 6-man, I don't know, like we can figure something out. Okay, cool. And then he put together this 6-man tag. I was like, this sounds like a lot of fun. It just so happened to be the literal hottest day of the year with no air conditioning.
Because of course it did.
Of course. Like to the point where like as you're like when we're driving there, like we're trying to put the air conditioning on, and like everything was just sweating. Like the windows were sweating. Like it was just like the I had a piece of tape that was taped to my like my dashboard.
Yeah.
And it was the tape that Custom used the first show after our buddy Otto had passed. He just wrote the name Otto on his boots. And then after the match, he had taped it to the wall at Crossbody, and it stayed there. And once we had left that facility, I took that tape and I just didn't know what to do with it. So I just put it on my car. That stayed on my car for about a year. And then all of a sudden the heat from the fucking Montreal air just melted that sumbitch right off. It just dropped.
Holy shit.
I was like, oh man. But anyway, so we went and did this match. Like we get there and he's just like, yeah, we're gonna do 20 minutes. And I was just like, in this heat? Oh my God. But we did the match. And it was a lot of fun. And I got to test myself against Speedball. And I was just like, man, this was such a great experience. And I feel really like really cool that I got to do this. And like it felt nice being able to test myself against a guy like him, because he's by far the best wrestler that Canada has. Like I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the entire world. I will always say that about him. And to get in there and, you know, like we definitely did his match, but to go in there and hang with him and kind of stay with him the entire time. Like, I mean, he definitely had to help me out at the last little bit there, because like my wind sucked, but we got through it and it was a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden the opportunity came up where, you know, he mentioned, he's just like, hey, would you be interested in coming down to potentially work again for IWS? And I was just like, fuck yes, because
yes, I would.
yes, because the other two guys who were a part of like the office, like Manny and Andrew, you know, Andrew.
Yep.
Andrew was a part of that 6-man tag, and we got together. Like it was the first time we'd ever met, and I was just like, I don't know much about you, but I know that like we're gonna be friends for life. I know that about you, and I don't know why, but I fucking love that dude.
Oh man, everybody that's met him does, and everybody that hasn't should.
Yeah. And it was just really cool, because I know that Manny even said like right before that match started, he's just like, oh, you better not suck. And then I think it dawns on me that he just says that to me every time now. But he also didn't know who I was. So he kind of had every right in the world to say that. He's like, I don't know who you are, but you're main eventing my show, so you better not fucking suck.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. So as soon as we get to the back, like he's just like, oh man, you guys are fucking way better than I thought, blah, 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 blah. So I was kind of half-assed hoping that he would invite us back. And then when he did, I just saw the match graphic pop up, and it was just like a 4-way match, #1 contender match and I was just like, wait, all right, whoa, what? And then I looked to see who was in the match, and it was Alex Silva, Benjamin Tull, Matt Angel. And I'm just like, oh, those are like the dudes. I was just like, I'm gonna go there and get swallowed up. Like I was just like, I'm driving to Montreal to get my ass handed to me. And then it turned out that they'd seen something different, you know what I mean? And that they thought that was something that they wanted to see me and him together.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know.
That got told. Sorry, go ahead.
No, never mind. You continue. I'm listening to your story. Nobody tunes in for me.
Well, I was just gonna say that like when like I found that out, I was just like, okay, it didn't even dawn on me that he was like the champion. Like they just told me that like, okay, so we're gonna have you wrestle Speedball, and I'm like, okay, and then all of a sudden I just started putting the math together. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. And then they're just like, yeah, you're gonna wrestle Speedball in the main event, and I'm like, for the title, like the same title that like Rey Mysterio's wrestled for, like in
Me?
whoa, that like puts my, but that automatically puts my name in there with like, that like legitimizes me, because like that puts me in the same sentence as guys like that and guys like Kevin Steen and guys like Generico, you know what I mean? Like there's a long list of guys that that puts me in there with, and that's was very like mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
So once I had kind of processed all that, like that's when those promos became like very easy for me, because like it was very, very real. Like the whole everything about it, like just man, like even thinking about it now, like I'm getting like emotional about it. But that whole thing for me was just a very, very real experience, because my entire career, you know, nobody really knew who I was. And I was just kind of always looked at as like a utility guy. Like people would bring me in for a show, maybe two. I'd basically be used to like put over a guy, you know what I mean? Like this guy needs to work somebody, and to get over, let's bring in, I don't know, fucking Ben. Boom. Cool. Then we don't need him anymore. All good. You know, and that was fine. I also, looking back on it, understand, because like looking back on it, I probably wouldn't have booked me long term either. And it had nothing to do with my skill. It was just I was a little asshole. And but you know, I was like, what a lot of people don't know is that like I've been literally on my own since I was 16 years old. Like I've been living like I slept on the streets of my, like I slept outside of, you know, my there's a boxing gym where my first wrestling school, well, technically my second wrestling school, but like the wrestling school where I really started at, where I was able to start going working shows and stuff like that, like Barton and Kenilworth is like the worst intersection of Hamilton, which is like a kind of a, like Hamilton is not a great city. And that's where our gym was. And I had to sleep there for like a week, like outside. And I would literally sleep up against the door, and I didn't tell anybody, but like it only got to the point where like the one day my trainers came in and there were, anyway, that's a different story. That's a long story for a different podcast. But anyway, but yeah, like, you know, like I really sacrificed a lot, and I just didn't have the best attitude because I didn't have any guidance. So like, it just didn't seem like it was going to happen for me. So like, once I kind of started to get into like the production stuff, I was like, okay, you know, maybe that's my path. I'm not going to be a wrestler anymore. And then that was kind of solidified by when I was, as you would find out in that little story that I'd put out, I was at Impact the one day doing, I wasn't even working. I was just, they brought me in to kind of oversee the guys doing the production work so I could kind of continue to learn. And I had seen a spot that was available for a TBD opponent to go and get squashed by, there was like 2 or 3 different spots, but I saw one where I thought I'd be perfect for. So I offered my assistance, and I was just like, hey, I know that you guys kind of have me doing this, but my gear is in the car and I'd really like to do this. It'd be kind of like my little bow on my wrestling career to have my TV match finally. And he stopped me dead in the hall. The person I was speaking to, I'm sure you can figure it out if you watch the video, but stopped me dead in the tracks. And he just looked at me dead in the eye and he says, Ben, you are not a fucking wrestler. And he just kept walking. And I was just like, whew, okay, so I guess I'm not a wrestler anymore. So like, you know, there was like this really long time where I didn't even think I was going to get back into wrestling. So when the pandemic happened, and then Twitch and then all of this stuff happened, and I kind of started setting goals for myself. And then next thing I know, I find myself in the main event of the fucking IWS show, which just so happened to be the first show that they were able to sell all the tickets post pandemic, and they fucking sold it out. There was 800 people there that were there to see, like, they weren't there to see me, because when you go in the you see the marquee, it was literally just Speedball on the marquee. And I kind of had to, like, part of me was like a little bummed, but then I was just like, yeah, they're not there to see me. Like they're there to see Speedball. You know what I mean? But and I was never going to win that title. Like it was just never in the cards, but I was gonna make sure that people fucking believed in me, that I was going in there to fight for that motherfucker for like every fiber of my being. And it was going to be one of those, like, my plan is that I was going to treat this as such, where I was going in there thinking I was going to win it. I was going to, like, those promos that I put out were, this is my opportunity. This is what I'm doing, and I will fucking kill you because you're in my way. Like, the whole shebang. Like, I made everything very, very, very personal, because it was personal. So it just made it that much sweeter when, like, at the end of it, like, when the blow off kind of happens, like, you get the moment of Speedball, like, the people got their moment, and then the people that were really paying attention to our story, maybe, like, because this is kind of how we saw it. We had the IWS audience that was paying attention to what was happening, but they didn't really know. And then we had our Twitch audience that was paying attention. They knew. So there was a lot of it that was structured. Most of that match was structured for our Twitch audience, not the IWS audience. So when Speedball won and he got up on the ropes, we, like, it wasn't something that we designed, but in my head, I knew that it was something that I needed to do. When he was up there getting his, like, his glory, I needed to be there, like, in my worst defeat, because that's what storytelling is. You know what I mean? And that's where it's at its most beautiful. And I thought that was a really cool thing that we got to do, and a really cool story that we got to tell, because I had no, like, if you were to look at my wrestling career, like, a year prior to that, I had no business being in that match. You know what I mean? But we did such a really, really cool job of building a story to get us there and to, like, make it believable. And at the end of that match, now Speedball brought me up to not his level, but he certainly, like, took me from obscurity and just now go.
It's the old getting over in defeat, or whatever they say on the inside of this business. I can't claim to be there. But it's wonderful, and I'm glad I waited, because what I was going to ask when I sort of interjected there the little bit was, like, I didn't know if validating would be the right word, but it certainly sounds like that's at least a small piece of why it means so much to you.
1,000%. Like, that was because not only did the match happen, but, like, it was, I mean, it's up for people's interpretations, but, like, it was everything that I wanted it to be. Like, it was everything that I wanted it to be. I hope to God that the Fight Network airs it. Like, I know that, so a little known, a tidbit that not a lot of people know is that show was supposed to be the first live to air, like, that was actually supposed to be aired live on the Fight Network.
Oh, cool.
That entire show was. So me and Speedball were going to be the main event of not only the first sold out show, but, like, we were supposed to be the main event of the first, like, Fight Network live to air main event,
broadcast,
like, main eventing, like, I'm, like, on a show that airs within, like, 23 countries or something like that.
Cool.
And so that's why, like, when we found out that was a possibility, that's why, like, I had just gotten new gear made, but I was even just like, nope, I even need newer gear. Like, so it was like, like, just everything about that, like, that for me, like, if that was, like, my WrestleMania, like, moment, I guess, if anybody wants to, like, everybody kind of has that moment, I guess, that they want, and that's what they yearn for, right? And, you know, I don't hope that that's my last one by any stretch of the imagination. I hope that was the first of many, provided that my body can hold up and for all this stuff, because I am a bit older now. But anything that I do going forward, I will always owe to what Speedball did for me that day.
You've certainly come a long way from the Hart Brothers Wrestling Academy, hey?
You could say that again. You could say that again.
What was the experience like there? Because you alluded to it a little earlier there when you were talking about your semi-first experience in professional wrestling training. Talk to me a little bit about it, and then talk to me a little bit about Fear the Fighter as well, because if we're going to talk about maybe not a great first experience, and talk about a great first experience.
Well, it was very brief, because it was only about a 2-week stay. So when my art teacher, shout out Mr. Miori, he came in the one day because me and him always vibed over wrestling, right? So he brought in this article the one day talking about the Hart Brothers School of Wrestling, blah, 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 blah. So I took it home to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I gotta go. It's Hart Brothers, right? So she took me down and here I am looking for Brett Noah. And I'm like, where are they? Where are they? Where are they? And there was no Hart brother that I knew of because I knew that whole fucking family. And I walked in there and I didn't see one of them. But the name was on it. And I was just like, I gotta be here.
It's the HEART Brothers Wrestling Academy.
and like talking to the dude, he like had pictures of like Stu and like all this other stuff. And I was just like, so what the fuck? Like I didn't know. Like I was young, right? I was young, I didn't know any better. So they started talking to me. I, kind of wowed them with my knowledge of being a 12-year-old wrestling guru. And they were giving me the whole spiel of like, we would train you for free, but you wouldn't appreciate it, blah, 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 and yada, 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 right? So anyway, we figure something out. I start training and like, I was catching on to it pretty naturally. Like, then the next thing I knew, I'm 12 years old. My parents had divorced when I was younger. Part of that deal was that my dad got me for a week every summer.
Mm-hmm.
So my week was up and I'm like, hey, I got to bounce for a week. I got to go and hang out with my dad. I'll be back in a week. And they're like, well, you're supposed to be here training. I'm like, I would rather be a training, but this is kind of court ordered. I got
like contractually obliged.
Yeah. I'm like, you guys should understand, right? So I go and do my time with my dad. I get home and I remember it being like a night where I was just like, ooh, if I get home in time, I can make training. So I get home in time and I'm like, Mom, can we go to training? She's like, yeah, you're never going back there again. It's like, shit. Okay. And then she tells me why. Excuse me. Turned out like she basically had caught on to the bullshit. So she pulled me. So I was looking back at it now, I understand, right?
Yeah.
And then the next school that I went to was this group called Camp Martell in Hamilton because I just, to be honest with you, I was looking for a ring that I could afford to go to, and they offered a monthly structure as opposed to an upfront structure, where it was actually quasi affordable. I was just like, I can handle the monthly part of it. I don't have $3,000 because that's what most schools were.
Yeah.
So started going down there, and then looking back at it, the training was not great. It wasn't great. And I mean that with all due respect, because the trainers themselves, most of them were wonderful human beings. And I still chat with them to this day. And I love those guys. As a matter of fact, I've actually invited some of them. Actually, one of them actually came down to Crossbody right before the pandemic happened, which was really neat to have. Like one of my original trainers, like be a part of, like kind of come down into like my gym and watch me coach like my students and stuff like that, which was kind of a neat thing, I suppose. And here's one thing I'll never forget, and I understand it now. I remember I always just I never understood why I wasn't getting onto shows, and like when I was younger, I was getting onto like a couple of them, but I wasn't getting like good spots. Like there was this one company that I always wanted to work for in Ontario, and they would just never ever fucking book me. Mm-hmm. But I would keep going to the shows, and then the one day, the one guy that I always wanted to impress and become friends with finally came up to me and was just like, what's your fucking deal, dude? And I was just like, I just want to be really good at wrestling and I don't know what to do. So I just like work really hard and I just come to shows and I don't know. And he's just like, yeah, I noticed that. He's just like, would you like to come with me to a show? And I was just like, yeah, I would. So he allowed me to travel with them to like, actually it was to the company that I wanted to work for. So he picks me up like at my apartment in Hamilton. He was coming in from Cambridge, and I was just like, fuck, this is awesome. And then, and I just remember he had a couple other people in the car with him, who ended up becoming notable dudes, but I don't need to talk about them because those dudes, I'm not fans of human beings. But this dude, the one who picked me up, I still love to death to this day as a human being. So, but I'm just listening to all of them like chatting and talking, and I'm just absorbing their knowledge. And then, the one, he just out of the blue just asked, he's like, hey, Ben, do you have any questions? And I was just like, what do I need to do to get better? Like, out of curiosity. And then he just immediately, he's just like, you need to get retrained. Like, shit, is it my trainer's that bad? And he's just like, there's a philosophy thing. And then, so I took that to heart, where like I would just start going to different places, and I would just like fucking just trying to keep getting better and better and better. And then, I had that old school mindset of like, let the veterans work with you. So when I had gotten a call to go on the Northern Hell tour, like last minute, I was just like, I can't afford to fly down there. Like, cause it would literally, I needed to fly down there like the same day kind of a thing.
Yep.
And then I was like, I can't afford to do that. And then he told me who was on the tour, and it was Chi Cruz was on the tour. And I was like, oh, I got to wrestle him. And then my buddy who was with me fucking paid for my ticket because he knew how much it meant to me, and then let me go down there. And then I paid him back when I got home. But essentially, kind of a long story short, like I kind of owe it all to my buddy who originally was just like, you need to go and get retrained, because like I really took that shit to heart. And then I don't know, like I wish that he would have stuck around longer, just because he ended up going up to like the big leagues and shit like that, and kind of became a bit of a bigger deal in himself. You know what I mean? It still is. But I wish I would have been able to kind of keep him around and kind of keep his guidance, because as soon as he left, like I didn't have it anymore. So I really only had like this maybe 2 or 3 months of like real guidance from somebody who was like actually looking out for me before they bounced. And like the rest was really just trying to figure shit out for myself. So, I would say it wasn't until I met like Notorious TID that I kind of like got smartened up to like, not just the business, but like life and kind of how to approach everything. So it's been a weird ride. It's been a very weird ride.
To say the least, man, but it's professional wrestling. I think that if anybody has like a linear journey in it, then honestly, that's probably the weirdest way you can go with it. I've got a couple of quick hits before we close her out here, Ben. And let me tell you, man, I'm already excited to have you back on here sooner rather than later. But of course, I have to ask you, seeing as the first time you and I met face to face was while you were here in Alberta. Talk to me about your experience in Calgary at the Hart House and visiting Owen.
Oh, man. That was so cool. That was by far the best week of my life, by the way. Alberta is so goddamn nice. I went out to visit my girlfriend, stay for the week, and oh my God, it was just perfect, because like the Hart House wasn't too far from where she lived. Owen's grave site is like a 20-minute venture from all of that, and it was just, everything was just, nothing was far from anything, you know what I mean? So when we first got there, like we had the first day of kind of rummaging around the city, and then she kind of, when the magical words came out of her mouth, she's like, is there anything that you want to do? Yes.
Yes, there are many things. Well, there are specifically 3 things.
But yes, I was like, yeah, I need to go to the Hart House, and then I need to go and I need to go and do this thing. And then God bless her heart, she was all for it. So she ended up, one of her friends lent us her car, so then that way we could go and do all that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I just remember, found the address. I remember messaging TJ, and I was just like, hey dude, is just the right address? He's like, yeah, that's all. Like, and then he's like, are you there? I was just like, well, I'm about to be. And then I just remember rolling up and thinking that this isn't what I thought it was. Like this, like even just remember seeing it as like a kid, like on TV, you're just like, am I in the right fucking neighborhood? Like, is this address right? It doesn't seem proper until you like roll onto that street.
Yeah.
And then actually see it. And then you're just like,
Oh shit.
okay, that's it. But then when you look around, you're just like, none of this surrounding area makes sense to like this. Like they clearly built around this.
This was here first.
Yeah, like this being a monument was clearly it being a monument, because everything else around it is like very nice where they've. And I got there and was just, you know how it is, dude. Like you just get there. And for someone like me who like just was like just a Hart family, like nut growing up and had never been there before and just always wanting to go there, finally like allowing my eyeballs to like process it. And I was just like, I genuinely felt like I was like in heaven. Like I didn't know how to process it because it was like so special. Yeah. My girlfriend made fun of me afterwards because she said that like she like you were just stood there for like what seemed like minutes and didn't move, and you were just like she's like you were stuck. I'm like, well, yeah. And then next thing I know, I think what clicked me out of it was like she was asking if I wanted pictures and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, blah blah blah. And then there's what I didn't know until you get there is because I'd always seen like those two like entrance pillars where like it had like Hart House and then like the little wrestler club or whatever that is. I didn't realize there was two sets of it, and I didn't realize that it all connected, and that was like the driveway, because I'd never been there before. You only see the one thing, right?
Yeah.
So I looked over to the one, and then I see a chain across it with a big old warning, like "Do not enter" sign. And then I looked over at the other one, and then I see a chain that appeared to be broken and a "Do not enter" sign that appeared to be broken. So to me, I'm like,
oh no.
I don't know Albertan laws.
But this broken "Do not enter" sign.
But I know that if we're talking about the main streets of Toronto, that broken chain and that broken sign says "Enter with caution."
It's like a sidewalk closed. It's just be a little more careful on it.
That's how I read the language. I didn't know if that was proper Albertan, but I was just like, hey, where I'm from, that sign says "Proceed with caution."
Honestly, out here, I'm sure you could find a lawyer that would defend that point. I'm like 100% certain on it.
So that's what I did. I proceeded with caution. I because I didn't know if there was cameras. Like I had no fucking clue. I knew that somebody might be there because I saw a window was open, and because it was summertime, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I didn't see any cars because there's trees there.
Yeah.
So I got my hands behind my back, and I'm like tiptoeing up the fucking driveway. I'm just like, so that way, in case there's any cameras, I'm just like, I mean no harm. I'm
not here to touch anything. Yeah.
I don't want anything. My eyeballs that need to see this. I just need to process this. You know what I mean? So then I get up to where I see the side of the house, and I was just like, I start losing my mind, because then you see like the side, and you just like, then your brain just starts like going nuts, and it just starts trying to remember all the pictures of like, okay, where was the ring set up? Like,
oh yeah, from all like the DVDs and the shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You just start to try to like place things, right? And then I'm just like, oh, fuck, do I keep going? So it was almost like a race for me, where I was just like, I needed to just kind of like, so I did the whole driveway. I'm like, and then I get to the other side of the house, and I look back, and then I see that there's like another thing there. And I remember TJ had told me that he had lived in like this little side house, and I was just like, oh, I think that's the side house. Yeah. So I went to go and walk up towards it, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm pressing my luck here. I went to go walk up towards it, and as soon as I walk up towards it, I see a car. And then that's when I was just like, gotta go.
And I am pressing my luck with it.
Yep, definitely pressing my luck. I'm just like, I gotta go. So because I also know that in the mean streets of Toronto, the proceed with caution, when you see a car, that car is the sign for proceed the fuck out.
Yeah, you obviously have to heed the caution as much as you heed the proceed.
So I started walking back. I got in front of the stairs. I took a picture because I'm like, fucking stop me now, bitches. So
Yeah.
I'm on my way out. So then I got out, and then I was just like, that was the fucking coolest thing I've ever done. And then we ended up going, like, once we left, we drove right from the Hart House to Owen's gravesite, and then that was difficult to find. But once we finally found it, I just remember it hit me right away. Like I'm kind of weird when it comes to like cemeteries, because I'm just like, it takes me a while to kind of process what I'm everything. Hit me right away, and I was just like, oh my God, like, because like I was just such a huge Owen Hart fan, and I still am. And I was like, it's just weird to think that like
he's there.
Yeah. So it was very strange. Like, it was very weird. And then it hit me like immediately. And then I'm like trying to keep my shit together because I got my girlfriend there, right? Like, I don't want to fucking cry in front of my girlfriend or whatever, right? So I'm like trying to keep my shit composed or whatever. And then all of a sudden she turns to me and she was just like, oh, babe, did you see this bench? And then I'm like, what bench? And then I turned over, and then there's a bench for Owen. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And then immediately, as soon as I realized there was that bench there, that it was for Owen, it dawns on me like, that is dirty as hell, and it's covered in bird shit. So I went into the car that I was borrowing from her friend, and we had some water and some tissues. So like I spent like a good like probably 20 minutes like just cleaning the bench up, because I was just like, I'm not gonna not do that, right? And then all of a sudden, like my girlfriend, she decides to take all the stuff and go and throw it in the garbage, which was like a little bit of a walk away. And then as soon as she like started to walk away, it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, I think I have a second here. And then as soon as I fucking turned into the thing, just
yeah, I've got a minute.
just
yeah,
lost it. I lost it. Like, I'm not the kind of person to like to talk to people, but like I immediately just started like, was like, thank you for like this, and for I just was, I fucked me up. And then all of a sudden she comes back, and I'm just like, I'm fine.
My contacts hurt. You're wearing your glasses.
This has been a day. She's like, babe, it's 11 a.m. I know.
This has been a tough one. We're over it. We're over it from this point.
But yeah, it was just it was a wild experience. And if anybody, like any wrestler, hasn't been to the Hart House, like, you gotta, like, it's weird. I don't know about how you guys feel down there, just because like you live in Alberta, right? So I don't know how it is for you, but like for me, the moment I got off the plane in Calgary, man, like you could just feel wrestling there. Like it's weird. Like you could feel it's a wrestling city. Like you could feel wrestling history in that city, and that it's a city that actually takes pride in it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a city where, like, if it was like Toronto, where you'd walk around and be like, oh, fucking like local wrestling, you know, somebody might be like, yeah, wrestling, but they wouldn't be like, oh, that's local wrestling. You know what I mean? You walk around Calgary and just like Stampede, Hart family. Oh yeah, fucking blah 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 blah. Right? So
everybody knows it. I mean, this is the best, most complimentary way to my father, but by no means is he a wrestling fan. And like, he'll still talk about everybody from back in the day.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
like that.
It was
right?
It was just something cool that at least I could feel in the air. So just it made my entire trip to like Alberta in general just even that much cooler.
Yeah. I love it, man. And I can't wait to have you back. And I can't wait to have you back on the show. But I've got to close her out with one more, and I think it ties in nicely because we talk about the history here in Alberta and in Calgary and Edmonton, but I think you guys are building towards that, at least as far as it goes in Ontario. So let's just close it out and let's talk about the Ontario indie scene. And for lack of a better way to put it, Ben, not even ask you a question on it, just take the opportunity to put it over before we close it out here on the show.
Well,
right, I know that's like much worse than even asking you a specific question.
Guys, here, let me tell you about the Ontario independent scene.
Ouch, population me.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, COVID notwithstanding, I hate using that phrase. It's almost like you find it on podcast bingo at this point.
Yeah. You know, I wish I had something to put over right now, but I really don't. I got nothing to put over other than just an entirely like an amazing group of hardworking young men and women here in Ontario. Like I feel really, really confident about this group of like up and comers that we've got right now. Just an unbelievable amount of pride in not just their craft, but being good people, and that really means a lot to guys like me. Something that, you know, I certainly look for just as as people that I want to surround myself with, and as people that I'd want to use as, you know, part of my company whenever, again, we're allowed to start bringing back shows and all that other stuff. But, you know, Ontario is a very, very it's a great pool of talent right now. You know, I'm not going to be that guy that says, oh, we've got the best talent that's undiscovered and blah, 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 because, well, the reality was if we had the best talent, and the reality, anybody has the ability to log on to a social media and put their own shit over. So to say that you're undiscoverable right now, I think is a really bad cop out. I think that getting eyeballs on you is probably the easiest it's ever been. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I believe that once everybody kind of figures out their own way to put their talent over, so then that way it's more delicious to consume, I guess would be the best way to explain that, then I think that's when their true talents are going to be recognized by the outside world of Ontario, just because, again, we have guys like Gabriel Fuerza and Vaughn Vertigo and Holden Albright, and, you know, girls like Alexia Nicole and Jody Threat, and, you know, our young up and coming girl like Crystal Moon, who's one of our students. You know, we've got like some talent around here, like, and Mark Wheeler, I don't want to leave him out either, just because you know, those are like our workhorses of like our young crew down here. And, you know, those guys are going to be the guys that kind of take our business and move it forward for us here in Ontario. And I think if anybody watching this video right now hasn't gone out of their way to check out some of those names that I just mentioned, please do. A wonderful spot to go and check them out is Crossbody Pro Wrestling. Wink.
Oh my goodness, you have done this before. You've streamed once or twice. You know we close the show out with our cheap plugs.
YouTube.com/Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy, where you can go watch a whole lot of shows, including the 3 shows that we were actually able to come back and do, which was our showcase series shows. I was just like, hey, let's do some smaller shows, get our feet underneath us so we can go do our big shows, and then nata. But
computer said no.
You got her. But hey, we got a couple shows off anyway, and if you want to see those shows, I'd highly recommend it to go and do that. If you want to see our probably the best year of shows that we've ever put on, if you have access to Independent Wrestling TV, go and check it out. Everything leading up to Family Day Feud 4 was just magical, but I think Family Day Feud 4 that we did was by far the best show that we've ever put on as a company. So if you were looking for just something to kind of treat yourself to, if you have some spare time, go do that. Go and check out those shows and all the shows before that. I got into the cheap plugs before we even started going into the cheap plugs. I'm sorry.
That's
But yes, just
completely
go
fine, my friend. That is
support-
always fine.
support Crossbody Pro Wrestling, please.
100%. And don't just support Crossbody, support Ben, because Ben, you know, I've said it a ton. I will continue to say it again, whether it's offline, online, in the Twitch comments, anything in between. But if there's any positive on this guy's end of things as far as a pandemic goes, meeting you was certainly one of those positives, because, man, you add a lot to life, and it's great to have you on the show finally, as well as to have had you here in Alberta, Japanese Village on me again next time you're out here. But if people want to keep up to date with the latest and greatest coming from you, Crossbody, anything in between, tune in to one of the many Twitch streams that you've got going on here in the near future. How can they do so, man?
You can find me on twitch.tv/Big Ben is Angry. You can find me on all social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, at Big Ben is Angry. You can find my YouTube channel where I've been putting up vlogs at youtube.com/Big Ben is Angry. The Speedball match that we just talked about during this podcast, if you want to go and see the story leading up to it, if you want to see the match, I put that all together into one vlog. It's called The Biggest Match of My Life. You can go and check out the entire build up, the match, the whole shebang afterwards, everything. It's a pretty crazy story, crazy match, the whole everything. And then you can also find Crossbody Pro Wrestling at youtube.com/Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy. And you can find all of our socials at CBPW Academy as well. We should be updating those probably shortly, just because we are now Crossbody Studios, not Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy, but we'll get to that eventually. We'll keep what we got. So go give us a follow, go give me a follow, support me in any way you can. And support Spencer and support Love Wrestling any way you can, because
thank you.
He says positive things about me, but to be perfectly honest with you, it was really, the pleasure was all mine getting a chance to finally meet you guys, and not just you, but like getting a chance to meet your entire crew. Like I've gotten to meet Love Wrestling crew out in Montreal. Like it's been a really cool networking of people, and you've got a really great crew that you've been able to put together. So it's been a real pleasure being able to kind of become a part of that. So,
oh man, consider yourself a big part of it. And I thoroughly appreciate hearing that. And I thoroughly appreciate the fact that the other people as part of it are good with it, because I will always leave myself notwithstanding to the great work that we do on Love Wrestling. And friends, if you want to keep up to date with what we are doing, you can find us wherever audio is played or videos are viewed at Love Wrestling CA. You want it all in one fell swoop, just put a dot in between Love Wrestling and CA. You'll take to the website. Everything's there: written articles, interviews, previews, reviews, breaking news. All of it can be found right there. Let's make sure we're supporting great professional wrestling and the great people in it. All of those links, all of those accounts, everywhere that Ben mentioned, I would highly suggest you guys head to, because there's going to be great stuff coming out of the Ontario indie scene. There's going to be great stuff coming out of Ben, and great stuff coming out of Crossbody here as soon, I am certain, as all of this shit is not over with, but close enough to being over with that we can get back out there. Let me tell you, I can't wait to get out there myself, man. But until then, we'll have you back on the show. We'll chat. We'll be in each other's Twitch streams. And hopefully, friends, you will continue to be there as well. For Big Venus, I am Spencer. We'll see you on the next one.